Greetings folks, Iolair here. In the previous replay that featured myself in the Tier 5 German light cruiser the Königsberg, where I intended to demonstrate what I thought were good cruiser practices, I mentioned that the following replay, which is this one, would also feature myself in a cruiser, again intending to demonstrate good cruiser practices, and I aim to not disappoint. This is myself in the Tier 6 German light cruiser, the Nürnberg, and I am in a division with two other players, also in Tier 6 ships. We have AngryAce in the U.S. Navy destroyer, the USS Farragut, and we have Lynn Wilkie in the premium Japanese battleship, the Mutsu. We are in a Tier 6 standard battle on Ring, with one Tier 6 aircraft carrier per team. And my build is focused on, again, being that very annoying long-range HE spammer with Demolition Expert. I do pick up basic firing training, and I mount the AA Guns Modification 1 upgrade to give myself a little more AA. And I also picked up Vigilance as a skill, which is something historically I have not done on my German cruisers because they already have the superior Hydro. And I've generally relied, on hopefully my good situational awareness to know when to use Hydro and where the destroyers are, so that I don't feel the need, or I haven't historically felt the need to have Vigilance. But I've decided to implement it on my Nürnberg, see how that works out, and if it's something that seems to be genuinely useful, I may very well implement that on other German cruisers that I play regularly. So in this match, again, I mentioned that I intend to demonstrate what I think are good cruiser practices. Now, I've started out here on the east flank with Lynn and Ace, and you can see that I'm detected. Now, my intention had been to be behind this island that's on my starboard side, that is low enough for me to be able to fire over, but be in concealment. And you can see that I've been detected. So I'm not entirely sure which ship is detecting me. It may have been the Gnevny that I'm now firing upon. It might be the Mutsu, which is more to my west, that was last seen at Echo 5 or Echo 4. I'm not entirely sure, but right now I have slipped into concealment, thanks to, I think, largely to the smoke screens that have been put up. But I was actually in a quite vulnerable position. So this is a place where I acknowledge I make, well, arguably a mistake. I have both the opposing Normandy and opposing New Mexico that could have fired on me because I was more or less stationary. And that makes me, again, very vulnerable. Both of those battleships, provided they're firing AP, don't really care about my angling. And being stationary or relatively stationary makes it relatively easy for them to be able to get a big hit on me. But fortunately, neither of them were putting too much focus. I did take a few shells, from the Normandy very early in the battle, but it wasn't too bad. A couple of overpens, and I've weathered that storm pretty well. So I'm going to creep forward here more toward the west side, again, to keep both the island and the smoke between me and the opposition that has the potential to fire on me. Now the opposing Normandy has gone down, so I'm pretty confident at this point that I should remain undetected, but I've slipped a little too far ahead to now be detected by the New Mexico that's more or less stationary. But again, he's not targeting me. So my goal here is to slip toward this headland that is at my 10 o'clock position. Again, get into concealment, which I now am in, and it's low enough that I'm able to fire on him. One of the challenges that we have in games where there are carriers is that even if normally you don't, the opposition doesn't have line of sight on you, through surface ships, they can still detect you by planes. And I was briefly detected by planes, but I've again gone back into concealment. So I'm going to slowly wind myself toward the headlands here, so that I can continue to fire on the opposition that is pushing more westward. And this, I want to do two things. One is obviously try to fire from concealment wherever possible, but also limit the number of opponents that can fire upon me. So this is another, again, very common practice of players, cruisers in particular, but even other classes of ship. This is a very good thing to do, is to use terrain to your advantage, so that even if you cannot fire from concealment, you can limit the number of opponents that can fire on you. If I were more in Lynn's position or the position where Emile Bertrand is, I could very well be more exposed to fire. The other thing that I'm doing in terms of my position here is that Lin Wilkie is actually, who is in the Mutsu, that's sort of to my south position. He is more the focus of the opposition, and that working through distraction can also be a very effective way as a cruiser to be able to operate, because even if you are in the open and even if you are fully detected and can be fired upon, if your allied battleships or other allies are sort of taking the focus of the opposing team, you can put fire on the opposition with relative ease. Now, if I were in a situation where I was more in the open and I was firing on this New Mexico, and then suddenly I realized the New Mexico would start firing on me again, or potentially targeting me, I might need to silence my guns and go into concealment and reposition to some place that's better for me. Now, this New Mexico, I have two fires burning on him, and I've asked both Lynn and Ace to kindly hold their fire because I expect to get Arsonist for the kill, which I do. So that's a nice achievement and a few signals I'm going to pick up. So I'm going to creep forward here because most of the opponents have continued to move westward. Now, tactically, we have a risk here. And so my next target here again is the Congo. And so I'm going to move slowly here so that I can creep out enough to put fire on the Congo, hopefully from concealment. But at least limit it to just him to be able to fire on me if he decides to target me. Now, looking at the tactical situation, our east presence is very good. We're obviously putting a lot of pressure on their cap, but our west presence is basically evaporating. We lost a Duca that was far on the far north side of the map. Get another fire on the Congo there. And we have an opposing Mutsuki that you can see that is sort of west-northwest of our cap. He's a threat to be able to potentially move into our cap and start taking that. Our allied Koenig, which is in the Delta 5 sector, is probably the focus of at least 2 or 3 ships. I don't have him on the screen right now, so we don't see how healthy or unhealthy he is at the moment. So right now our west flank is quite exposed. And so I have elected, while I'm using some very long-range fire here and having sort of mixed results in terms of getting shells on target, in fact, our Koenig just did go down, I intend to stay back because I want to be able to defend our cap in the event that the Mutsuki or the Genova or the Graf Spee on the opposing team intend to press our cap. And in fact, the Mutsuki will eventually end up making his way to our cap, and I will be glad that I have stuck back. So it's at this point that I'm I was briefly surface detected, and I thought it was probably the Congo, but then I realized at this point it could very well be the Mutsuki is starting to get behind us and get in a position that he can put pressure on our cap. So this is why I'm backing up to turn around and then go towards our cap. And sure enough, I do get detected here. So I know that the destroyer has crossed the headland, and sure enough, he enters the cap. So I will type in a chat here, hey carrier, can you get some eyes on the cap? We need to see where the destroyer is. I do have my hydroacoustic search ready. Obviously, it's the buffed German hydro, and with vigilance stacked on top of it, I will have more than adequate warning on any torpedoes he may send. So my objective here is to push into the cap to help defend it. Ideally take out the destroyer or at least drive him off. I'm going to get in some slightly cheeky shots here over the headlands, over the terrain onto the Genova, but I don't quite finish him off. But I do run a little bit of a risk here when I pass this clearing on my port side. The Graf Spee might have the potential to fire upon me. In fact, there we see the Mutsuki, and I will pop hydro right here in anticipation of the torpedoes. But also the Oktyabrskaya Revoluция might be able to fire upon me if I had crossed that gap while being detected. Fortunately, neither of them targeted me, and the Mutsuki has sent one set of torpedoes, and there you see the second set. So I basically am detecting his torpedoes as soon as they are physically leaving his ship. So I have basically no reason to take any of his torpedoes. I'm going to press in here. He's being detected by my hydro. This Mutsuki player knows well enough to get out of my reach. He's going to cross around the terrain, keep the terrain between me and him, so I'm not going to be able to fire on him. Now, my next goal, or my next target here, is the Revolutia, and in fact, we just lost Lynn, so we've lost our last battleship on our team. I put my plane up so I can keep eyes on the Revolutia, and also that this detects the Graf Spee. Now, I make another mistake here. I should have stopped in this position because I have the Mutsuki's smoke between me and the Revolutia. I'm able to fire on him from concealment, but unfortunately I creep a little too far forward, and I am going to get detected by the Revolutia here in just a moment. In fact, he's obviously got his guns towards our cap because the opposing team can see our Emile Bertrand, but they probably cannot see AngryAce and the Farragut, who's still in the cap. We have a 2-ship deficit now. I do have one fire on the Revolutia. The Revolutia has clearly started to target me, and he wants to turn his ship to get his guns on me as quickly as he can. But between the fire and the incessant shelling, he is going to go down with his salvo without getting any shells away. And so now I've protected myself and got us back to at least just a 1-ship deficit. The opposing Mutsuki has moved to their cap to defend, and that's a very smart thing for him to do. And AngryAce is going to be able to finish off the Mutsuki with gunfire. The challenge that AngryAce has, and we've now evened up the ship count and we've now taken the lead, but it's a little bit precarious because Ace has no support effectively at the cap. I need to kind of stay behind because it looked like the Graf Spee may be turning around to come toward our cap. And in fact, he actually will end up turning around and going back to his own cap. But I wasn't sure, so I wanted to stay behind in the event that the Graf Spee was coming toward our cap. I can't really help AngryAce in this position. And AngryAce's situation is that he cannot see. I think he's still in smoke at this point. He cannot see if there's opposing aircraft coming, and sure enough, they do come, and there's not much he can do. The opposing Budioni, which was last seen west of his own cap, he will end up being able to push him and put pressure on AngryAce, and Ace is not going to be able to get into concealment because the opposing carrier is basically going to keep him detected. So at this point, I was expecting to have seen the Graf Spee already. Now the opposing Budioni has just showed up in his cap. There's nothing that Ace can do. He's, like I said, he's going to be permanently spotted by the aircraft. The Budioni is a very good light cruiser with rail guns. He's, provided he aims reasonably well, he's going to be able to get Ace down here fairly quickly with just a few more shells. And we are going to lose Ace, and then that's going to put us behind again. So just going to wait here to see. In fact, there goes Ace. So now we're behind by 13 points, or, well, depends upon the timing of when the points tick up. So my regular viewers are going to know that at this point, what should the opposing team be doing? They've taken the lead back in the standard battle. They have a Graf Spee and the Budioni that combined could finish me off if I elected to press their cap. In fact, I'm heading south here, looking to try to engage them on a one-on-one basis only, because I still have most of my health, which is good, but I can't compete against both of them simultaneously. In fact, the Graf Spee, since it mounts essentially the Scharnhorst guns, only has to get like one lucky shot and erase the majority of my health. So my goal here is to try to engage the Budioni first, and then either because I only have to sink one ship in order to give us the lead back, and not try to make that the Graf Spee. In fact, here comes the Budioni. The Budioni is sailing away. I don't know whether he is doing this on purpose or whether somebody said to him, hey, just sail away. We have the lead. There's no need to press. But the opposing team at this point, like I mentioned, should just sail away. for the win. The action item is on our team to try to sink something. And as I mentioned, my goal was to try to get the Budioni down. He is clearly silenced his guns. In fact, there's Confederate. But he wants, somebody probably told him, stop firing, just run. We have this so long as we survive. And I expect that's fully right. Now, the opposing Graf Spee is now in the center of the map. Here I'm coming under aerial attack from the carrier, so the carrier is obviously focusing me. So I realize at this point I can't go after the Budioni. I don't have the speed or to do it. The Graf Spee is, however, in my opinion, making a mistake here. He's pressing in toward our cap. There's no need for him to do this. He can stay in concealment. He could have parked behind an island, and or maybe our carrier would have been able to go after him. There was no need for him to get engaged here. And so I've sent torpedoes from my starboard side. I'm ready to send torpedoes from the port side in case he dodges these. I have AP loaded because he's coming out broadside to me. I'm going to get quite a few pens, although that was less damage than I was hoping, but one of my torpedoes does land true, and I finish off the Graf Spee and give our team the lead again. So I'm going to turn in here, obviously avoid these torpedoes, and at this point, all I have to do now that we've gotten the lead back is for me to sail away. So my biggest risk is probably the aircraft carrier. I am carrying a Juliet Charlie signal, so he won't be able to detonate me. But with 2 minutes left, he probably won't be able to sink me in that time. He may be able to get some damage in. I do use my torpedo indicator to see if he's pushing forward, which he is. And at this point, I'm basically going to sail away. But he's kind of given me a little bit of extra bonus points here by being able to fire on him. I can understand why the carrier moved up here. I don't think that this is a mistake necessarily on his part. I think he wanted to be in a position where he could cycle his aircraft a lot more quickly to be able to get more sustained fire. I'm sailing in the way that I am so that I can stay out of reach of the Budioni and keep the terrain between me and the Budioni while I'm able to at least sail away or keep the fire on the Ark Royale. And I am going to be able to finish off the carrier here for the 4th kill. Obviously, it would have been a nice addition if I could get the Kraken Unleashed. Kraken Unleashed. Get that right this time. There's High Caliber. But just getting the win enough and helping to bring the game back for the team was enough. I'm going to sink the carrier, and he's not going to have time to finish me off. So I'm going to move ahead here to the results screens, and you can see how the game turned out. So I did over 130,000 in damage, 4 kills, 3 achievements, including High Caliber, Confederate, and Arsonist, so got quite a few signals out of it, and a really good match overall. So hopefully a good demonstration again of some good cruiser practices in terms of positioning and doing your thing. And so I hope you enjoyed the replay and the commentary. Please do leave your comments below, and as always, we hope to see you out there, and we wish you happy sailing.